Echo is now out on Disney Plus. It is airing all 5 of its episodes all at once. So it's been a little bit since we did a ranking for the MCU show. So I figured now that we have Echo out, let's rank the MCU Disney Plus shows. For preference, this is going to be the live action shows. So I'm not including What If. I'm not including I Am Groot. I know they're technically MCU shows, but they're just so far removed that I just want to focus on the live action shows. Okay? All in agreement? Great. Well, let's kick this off then with number 9. And my number 9, I'm going with She-Hulk. This series is just a series that really didn't work for me. I did enjoy the first couple episodes. I thought it was kind of intriguing what they were doing with Bruce's Hulk training She-Hulk. I enjoyed all that, but then the series just really started to go downhill when it felt like it was directionless. The humor really did not work for me. I did not find this show very funny, and I just didn't think that the way that they broke the fourth wall worked in the MCU, which is a universe in which there is so much verisimilitude that we have bought into for years. When you get a big robot at the end, the Kevin Feige bot that says that all of this is an algorithm that he's created, She-Hulk can stop a fight and totally just get rid of the third act battle in her own show because she wants to. She can walk up to the writers. All of that just took me out of the show, took me out of the MCU. I don't like that it's a part of the MCU canon, and this is the one and only MCU project that I actively dislike. Following She-Hulk at number 8, I've got Secret Invasion. Now, this show gets crapped on a lot, and for really good reason, because the finale of the show sucks. The finale of the show is awful. It introduces things last minute. You got a big CGI battle of these Super Skrulls going on that feels completely unearned. It feels completely stupid. Then you've got this overpowered hero now just walking around the MCU, and it just feels like it came out of nowhere. But before all that stupidness happened and those dumb ideas came in, this was a series that I was actually really enjoying. I thought the performances from Samuel L. Jackson, Don Cheadle, everyone involved were fantastic. This is probably the best that Samuel L. Jackson has performed in the MCU, which he's great in the MCU and as a whole, so that's saying a lot. I liked the intrigue. I liked the spy espionage feel that we were getting at the beginning. When it was being the Who's show that it promised us to be, I was intrigued. I was enjoying it, but then it just went and crapped the bed at the end, and for that reason, it sunk way down to number 8. Moving on to number 7. Moon Knight. Moon Knight. Secret Invasion and Moon Knight are the two most disappointing and wasted potential shows in the MCU, because Moon Knight started off really cool. I really enjoyed the introduction to Moonlight. I really enjoyed the whole double identity thing that was going on, the confusion that the character was in. This show also has a fantastic performance by Oscar Isaac, probably one of the best performances in the MCU, period. I like a lot of the individual episodes. I think the episode where he kind of goes into his own mind is phenomenal. When you get the big hippo running around, it's ridiculous, but somehow it kind of works. But this show also felt kind of sloppy. It felt rushed in aspects. A lot of it felt underdeveloped. And when you get to the end, it just feels completely unearned with all these big Greek or Egyptian gods running around smashing each other into pyramids. It does not feel like the show that we started with, and it does not feel like what the show was building up to. So there's a lot of great stuff within Moon Knight, led by, like I said, fantastic performance by Oscar Isaac. But in the end, this is one of those shows that just missed its potential for me, and for that reason, it comes in at number 7. Moving on to number 6, we've got Hawkeye. Now, this is a pretty lighthearted, easy watch when it comes to the MCU shows. There's not very many consequential circumstances going on here. It's just Hawkeye on Christmas trying to get home to his family, and Kate Bishop is interrupting him. But I really like Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld's chemistry in this show. I love the introduction to Kate Bishop. There was some fun action sequences. I'm a Christmas guy, so I appreciated the Christmas atmosphere. And yes, I do think that this has a pretty bad introduction to the character of Kingpin into the MCU. Yelena feels completely forced into the narrative just because they have to pay off a post-credit scene from Black Widow. But this wasn't the exploration of the Hawkeye character that I was hoping that it would be. But what this is a fun little Christmas romp that you put on around the holidays. You get some MCU action, you get some MCU hijinks and jokes, and I find Hawkeye to be an enjoyable enough time. Been kicking off our top 5. I'm going with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And this is a show that I thought had some really interesting themes and ideas in it, some great action sequences. I do think this show, though, got hurt because it was being shot during the pandemic and they had a whole plot line of this disease getting out that they had to change because of what was happening in the real world. You can feel the rewrites, you can feel the reshoots a little bit of this show. The villains, the Flag Smashers, never really got into them very much. Carly was a very forgettable, non-existent villain in some ways. I really enjoy the chemistry between Bucky and the Falcon in this. I like exploring the Falcon's journey to accepting the Captain America shield. I thought they did some really good stuff there, but there's also some episodes in this that felt like they dragged, they kind of droned on. I loved Wyatt Russell, though, as Discount Captain America in this series. I thought they did some really interesting stuff with his character and explored him a lot. Really looking forward to seeing him coming back in the Thunderbolts. So while Falcon Winter Soldier wasn't the home run that I was hoping it was going to be when it was first announced, I was hoping we were going to get another Winter Soldier Civil War type masterpiece in the MCU. But in the end, it was good enough. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it as a buddy action show with Sam and Bucky. At number 4, and recently added to Disney Plus, I'm going with Echo. Now, Echo, I have been looking around. It's got like a 60, or maybe it's got like a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes at this point. But not many people are liking this show as much as I thought that they would when I watched it. I thought that this was a great redemption for this character. Because in Hawkeye, when they introduced Maya Lopez and Hawkeye as just this kind of henchman to Kingpin, I didn't find her very interesting. I don't think that they serviced the character very well. What they do with her here is they put her in a dilemma of choosing between two worlds that she is a part of, the crime criminal world and her family and her Native American roots back in Oklahoma, by putting her in that scenario and surrounding her by some pretty endearing and fun characters that I enjoyed watching. I thought that Echo had the heart. I thought it had some great brutal action sequences as well that really excited me and worked for me. I liked the story. I liked the characters. It drops a couple narratives here and there throughout the show. It's pretty rushed by the end with a finale that I did feel unsatisfied by, that I won't give spoilers away because it's a newer show. But basically, when they announced that an Echo show was coming out after I watched Hawkeye, I could not care less about this character. I could not care less about her show. But after watching her show, I like this character a lot more. I'm way more intrigued with her story. The story hooked me. The characters hooked me. I thought Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin redeemed himself as well, because he was not very well used in Hawkeye, but here I thought he was much better. I ended up really enjoying the Echo show. Kicking off our top 3, though, we've got Ms. Marvel. Now, when it comes to this show, the superhero aspect of it is honestly my least interested part of the show. It's pretty generic. You've seen it all before, but what this show has going for it is an incredibly charming lead, an incredibly charming cast, a great family dynamic and atmosphere, and a real cool look into a culture, the Muslim culture, that I'm very unfamiliar with. This is a history lesson show. It teaches you their history. It teaches you about history. It's so much fun. It exuberates youthful energy. I mean, Kamala is a great addition to the MCU. She is their new star, and Iman Vellani is phenomenal in this show. I do think that it has a villain problem, because the villains in Ms. Marvel and what they were doing never captured my attention, never really even enters my mind when I think about Ms. Marvel, and they kind of go out like wimps. They kind of go out pretty foolishly. So yes, Ms. Marvel has a lot of flaws to it, but what it really succeeds at, with that family dynamic, with the charming cast, with the charm in general, it overpowers all those flaws, and I love this show. Which brings us to our runner-up at number 2, and for me, that's gonna be WandaVision. This was the first show on Disney Plus that came from Marvel Studios, and boy, did it set us up for some disappointment, because this show was great. I loved all the homages to the old television classics. I grew up watching a lot of those with my grandparents and family, so to get all the references and to get what they were doing with it was a lot of fun, and I love that old-fashioned sitcom humor, so I had myself laughing throughout the show. The mystery aspect to the show was also really good, really intriguing. intriguing. What was going on with Wanda? What was going on with all these people trapped in Wanda's dome? You had Kat Dennings come back from Thor: The Dark World. She kind of redeemed herself too. I thought she was great in the show. You had Randall Park come in. He was great. I loved Paul Bettany. I loved Elizabeth Olsen's relationship. I loved how dark it got. Agatha's inclusion into the story does feel a little bit clunky at times. And when you get to the finale, it does kind of feel like you're watching a different show. It feels like you're watching the obligatory Marvel show by the time you get to the final episode. But what this show had was great build-up, great intrigue, great performances, great concepts. But on a rewatch, I will say that watching this week to week and watching the mystery unfold before my eyes, not knowing what was going on, had this show at number one for a lot longer than it probably should have, because on a rewatch, without that week to week intrigue and mystery, it does kind of go down a few pegs, and it definitely went down to number two after Loki Season 2 came out, because that jumped Loki into my number one position. Loki Season 1, I enjoyed Loki Season 1. I did think that it was a little bit hard to it was a big pill to swallow in some ways, because you're introducing this time organization that has been overlooking the sacred timeline of the MCU. Everything that's happened in the MCU is because these guys allowed it to happen. It was a lot to take in, especially when the MCU at this point in time never had anything like that before, but it had some really intriguing time related aspects to it. Even if I felt like the Season 1 was a little bit bloated and a little bit more convoluted for its own good. What Season 2 did, though, Season 2 really focused up the narrative for me. It focused on a smaller group of characters dealing with a smaller situation, trying to deal with this one thing. I thought Jonathan Majors coming back as Victor Timely and He Who Remains was great. But Tom Hiddleston really gave the performance of his entire life in the MCU, and what they do with the character of Loki, the journey that this character goes on from Season 1 to seeing its completion in Season 2, it's just so satisfying. It is probably, without exaggeration, the most satisfying finale to one of these shows that Disney Plus Marvel has ever done. I enjoyed the journey. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the world. I really, really loved Loki Season 2, and retrospectively, it made me like Loki Season 1 even more. So for that reason, it has jumped over WandaVision and has taken my number one spot as my favorite Marvel MCU show up into this point. And with that, guys, those are all my rankings of the Marvel Cinematic Universe shows, the live action ones anyways. Now, what did you guys think of these shows, and how would you rank them? Comment down below and let me know. You can add What If and I Am Groot and all those shows if you want to. I just wanted to focus on the live action ones.